Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to ETH Talk, your weekly look at the market in ETH Online. And there's actually some more activity starting up in ETH as well, because apparently CCP is planning to add an event in the September release called Purity of the Throne. So it's going to be all about the preparations and possibly some factions that don't like the coronation of the next Empress of the Amar Empire. On top of that, we will also have a return of the Crimson Harvest in October. This is both good because I think a lot of people enjoyed the Crimson Harvest, but it could also be pretty bad for the market because that was last year the Crimson Harvest came with a very long plex sale that had a pretty bad influence on the plex prices. So if you're like me, you have invested in plexes, then this may be something that is just going to stall your potential sell opportunity. So let's jump in on that and let's take a look at plexes. Let's say 110 for the start of it. And we can already see from the ticker below that plexes have gone up a little bit. Sellers are at 1,087,000,000, 1,088,000,000. They're pretty small in numbers, so you can see that just a bit more demand can actually start pushing the plex prices in the 1,090,000,000 range pretty easily. Buyers are above 1 billion as well, 1,040,000,000. And if we look at the chart here, we can clearly see that the 20-day moving average is starting a clear and steady ascent towards crossing 1 billion without too much effort. Actually, a little bit of hesitation on the 5-day moving average there, but then we were back up again. Bit of hesitation when we hit 1,050,000,000, but now we are up upwards again, and as we can see from the current sell prices, it looks like this will have some legs, some momentum. So plexes are going up as the summer ends apparently. Next up, we've got the training certificate that is also going up as well. Same 20-day moving average chart, same bit of hesitation here and there on the 5-day moving average. Bit worrying at the end here. We do have some median daily prices that are down quite substantially. So these training certificates though are going for 1,087,000,000, 88. That's pretty much where plex are, and 980,000,000 for the buyers. So you do have a bit of a smaller margin for the trading, larger margin for the trading certificate. The market is also a lot smaller, of course, which is why this margin can exist. Next up, we've got the resculpt certificate slowly going back down to 240 million ISK, which I think is considered to be decently cheap, considering its equivalent if you have to value it in plexes. Selling for 266 million and buying for 236 million. So where do I get this information? It's from Yves Prosper. He also does an analysis of all of this, and he said that when the body resculpts were going up substantially, like here towards 260 to 80, that this is when they only reached parity with plex prices, or with the conversion you need to do in order to create the body resculpt. So the fact that they're going back down here probably means that people are just not interested in the body resculpts enough, that people just aren't willing to buy them, even for the amount that people have created or already floating around the market. Because you can also see that the volumes are pretty abysmal. You have days now with just 1 or 2 of them being sold, where during the summer you had days with 1 or 0 even. So that's obviously a lack of demand in this market. Next up, we've got skill extractors that should be going up in tandem with plexes, and you can see that the chart is very, very similar. 20-day moving average on a steady increase. Currently, these are selling for 248 million. Buyers are at 242 million. Very close margin here. We can also see that the volumes here are still pretty crazy. Just look at the amounts in the last 24 hours, several pages, 35, 70. These are hundreds and hundreds of skill extractors coming to the market every day. So this is still pretty damn hot. Volumes are pretty high here as well, which is why you get a very nice steady chart, just like with plexes, that mirror them very closely because they're so tightly close together. because they need to be converted from one another using Orem. Next up, we've got the skill injectors. That could be more interesting after a really big dive down to 560 million. I call this an investment opportunity, and apparently I was not the only one to think so, because we jumped back towards 590 million in a week. Currently selling for 586 million. The buyers are at 570 million. I'll be honest, everything below 600 million could still be good longer term. But the buy opportunity at 560 million was pretty obvious if you looked at the chart here. We were at a 6-month low, quite a bit of volatility on the way down here all of a sudden, and a bit of a recovery, I think, just on people taking their positions, saying that, well, at 560 I'm going to make a profit at some point, so I'm buying all of these skill injectors. I was quite surprised by this dive down, considering that the skill extractors and plexes were steadily going up in price. So this must have been an interpretation by the market, I think, of the alpha clones, maybe basically the startup cost being gone from skill point farmers, or possibly just the fact that they expect a lot of people to just jump on a free-to-play bandwagon, create more skill points, and create a decreased demand for skill points in general, which is why people basically stayed off the skill injectors for a while. That's a possibility as well, but personally I think that if there's enough alpha clones coming to the game, you will have just a few percentage of those actually subbing is going to make up for those few pilots, in my opinion, that are just not going to keep playing EVE Online as a subscriber on an Omega clone and are going to decide to do all of their EVE on alpha clones. So I think that this was indeed a bit of an overreaction, that this was a great buy opportunity, and now it went back up. I think a lot of people agreed with that, basically snagged up all of those cheap skill injectors. So next up, we'll take a look at the minerals. That's going to be 650. Let's see what we can spot here. We already know from the ticker that titanium is down a little bit again, but it's now really trying to hold on to 6 ISK, which is not a bad price. At 560 towards 550, I was like, no, I'm not going to sell anymore. But at 6 ISK, you can sell if you want to or need to, in my opinion. So 603 for the sellers, 582 for the buyers. You can also see that after going down from 6.7 ISK to a bottom of 5.6 ISK throughout the summer, this is a bit of a recovery, and a pretty sharp recovery in just a couple of weeks, from titanium back up to 6 ISK in this range, and it seems to be willing to stay in this range for now. So I think that this is okay to be mining titanium and actually selling the titanium to the market. When it comes to the numbers here, you have strong demand. In my opinion, 2 billion, 1.3 billion, 2 billion, a billion again. You do have decent supply as well, 1.5 billion, 2 billion here, 1.5 billion. So it looks like it's balancing out a little bit more now. And I think that titanium is set to trade in this range in the foreseeable future. Personally, I don't think it's a bad idea to sell at these prices, but I also expect that if activity increases, if we get a bit of some nullsec activity, some more ships being destroyed just straight up from the alpha clones potentially, then the price will probably go up throughout the winter. Right now, yeah, titanium already actually recovered a little bit, which is a lot better than some of the other minerals. Let's take a look at those. Here is pyrite. I think that was on a 6-month low and hovering in that range. Yep, exactly, in the last few weeks here. So you can see that this is obviously something different from titanium. We started at 11 ISK, now we went down to 9.2 ISK, and throughout the entire summer and even now we were still holding on. With an actual bottom breaking 9 ISK on some days here. Pretty crazy. I obviously have not been and I'm still not selling my pyrite. I think at 10 ISK you can start to sell again, but we obviously also jumped up a little bit from that 6-month low point on the 5-day moving average, but still only to 9.4 ISK, 9.5 pretty much for the sellers, 9 ISK for the buyers. They've been forced above 9 ISK once again, so it does look like it's going to be a bit more structural at this point. I do think that pyrite could start to trade in the 9.4 trade range. But personally, once again here, I think it's too early. Tritanium is okay with 6 ISK, but you can expect pyrite at some point to go above 10 ISK, where it will be like a normal trading range, normal price for pyrite. And if we get lucky, 11 ISK is of course an extremely good price. Next up, we've got Mexalon, which had to give a lot of ground in the last few weeks and months, almost 2 months here, which was just pressure from the other minerals, in my opinion. So Mexalon was actually the one winner from the summer, managing to hold on to a very good price of 74 ISK. Had to give all that away to a bottom of 62 ISK, and now together with Tritanium pulling back a little bit, together with Pyrite pulling back a little bit, if you want to call it that, from an extremely low price. Mexalon also recovering a bit towards 64 ISK here. So the sellers are at 65.2, the buyers are at 62 ISK, which is maybe a bit low, but I would say Mexalon, you could still sell that as well if you need to make some liquid ISK at the moment. And actually recovering a bit to 65 is quite alright. But again, you can see that the potential is well above 70 ISK as well for Mexalon here. So this decrease in price here has actually been due to just pressure from oversupply, because all the other minerals were doing so badly. When it comes to supply demand here, you don't see that many. Well, actually, yeah, you do. More than a full front page of new sell orders, 12 million, 20 million here, 35 million here. On the buyer side, a bit more, 40 million, 50 million, 100 million, but they're also not as frequent here. So you can see that we've got a couple of fresh buy orders, not that many new, but after that they go to 2-3 days and even more on the front page. So I would say slight edge to supply at the moment. This could be under pressure to go back down, which is normal considering that pyrite is still at a very bad price, and Isogen will probably be as well. I think that for Mexalon right now 64-65 is still okay, but I think it's going to get under pressure because, well, we've been going down so hard on this first bump up. I think a lot of people are willing to just make a bit of ISK, which I think is okay still at this price as well. So next up, Isogen. That is not good at all for the Isogen market. Starting at 100 ISK 6 months ago, we are now trading below 80 ISK on the 5-day moving average. That is a substantial loss here, 20% down, more than that, and no end in sight. That's what's so crazy about it. So Isogen, you can stock up on that. I think you can buy it for like 79 ISK, no problem. The sellers are at 81 ISK, which is definitely pretty damn low. And despite that, this is my biggest surprise, you still have 13 million coming in, 4 million coming in here, still have a front page of new sell orders in the last 24 hours. The buyers are starting to show up as well here, 6 million, 8.5 million and 4 million here, but yeah, Isogen just trading in a very low range at the moment. I would not be willing to sell at these prices. 90.94 is a better price in my opinion. So to my surprise, Isogen yet again reaching a 6-month low, another low point for Isogen, breaking 80 ISK on the chart. And in my opinion, you can definitely stock up on this, maybe pour some ISK into that. Don't pour all your ISK into a single product, of course, but considering this chart, it's almost a no-brainer investment to pick up some Isogen on the way down here, forming a bottom. Considering the pullback for Tritanium, bit of a pullback for Mexalon, bit of a pullback for Pyrite. At some point Isogen is going to follow suit as well, because people are just going to start mining more Tritanium, more Mexalon, more whatever has increased in price. It's going to decrease supply for Isogen, and it should have a similar effect on the price here as well. So yeah, I think this is obviously an opportunity to make a little bit of money longer term by purchasing some Isogen. Next up, we've got Noxium. That is also pulling back a little bit from a 6-month low point at 400 ISK. We've never seen that before, Noxium going so low. Let's take a quick look at supply demand. Supply, yeah, on the bump up, it's coming back here, 2 million here, a million here, almost a million here, a couple of times as well. Demand is similar in size when it comes to the number of orders. You have one big one of 8 million units here that's willing to buy at 405 ISK, but other than that, much smaller. So Noxium is, I think, going to just start trading in this range, which is for the sellers 435 ISK. That can probably be pushed back down, considering how many fresh orders in and around the 1 million, 2 million are coming in here, and then the buyers 405, 406. So probably just above the 400 price range, up to 430 is probably where Noxium is going to trade. Extremely low, but I would say that it would be a major gamble to buy a lot of this, because for Noxium, unfortunately, this has been a structural problem after the rebalancing of ores done by CCP. We're just getting too much of it from, I think, all spaces, nullsec, wormhole space, and HiSec. And as a result, we are at these all-time low prices, but it's probably going to take like a CCP intervention to stop this this bad price here to actually have a substantial increase in the price of Noxium, because we've been going like this for more than a year, which I think is the reason why I would not invest in Noxium at the moment. Next, I'm holding off from selling, though. I do think that 480, 500 could come in range on a bit of luck, on a bit of loss, on some extra mineral demand, but no, investing in this I feel is too risky. Next up, we've got Zydrine from nullsec. After reaching a bottom of, well, probably 1030, something like that, it's now just meandering around up above and below the 1100 ISK mark, which is not that bad, but to call this investment worthy, I don't really think so. So 1100 ISK for the sellers, 1055 ISK for the buyers. Pretty small margin here, but this is an okay price. If you need some Zydrine, expecting to need it to build stuff later on, then I think it's okay to stock up. To start binging on Zydrine as an investment, I think is pretty risky, maybe not really necessary. The one buy opportunity here, when we obviously broke 1050, is where I bought a little bit of Zydrine as well, sort of as an investment, but a lot of it is just to have Zydrine available for my manufacturing as well, which you can still do at this price, so that's definitely quite okay. A small upswing to be spotted at the end here as well. And next up we've got Megasite, the other nullsec mineral, slowly edging down, actually breaking 1350, but apparently 5-day moving average and 20-day moving average are willing to meet each other just around this price. So this once again, 1314 for the sellers, 1265 for the buyers. Decently small margin, decent supply here, well, 1.5, couple million coming in, decent demand as well, couple million, a bit more even being bought or ordered in the last 24 hours. So I think Megasite is also going to start trading around 1300 price mark, which is okay. Once again, if you need Megasite, you can buy this at this price. If you're looking for an investment, unfortunately 1100 4 or 5 months ago is where it was at. So this is obviously right in between the chart, okay to buy, but not as an investment in my opinion. And then finally we've got Morphite, which is actually going down substantially, breaking 10,000 ISK on the chart. Very interesting. 9,776 for the sellers, 9,300 for the buyers. Very important. Last time 10,000 was a trigger. This was an expansion. We have an expansion in November, so yes, I am going to pour a couple 100 million into Morphite at this point. Probably trying to buy at 9.4k or something like that, because it is tied to the tick 2 market. It knows these more volatile periods from time to time, but then it has these steady declines. You can see that we come from that here as well. Maybe quick look at the 1 year chart. This is of course an extremely violent increase in price, which was with the Citadel expansion. My hope is that this decrease in price will actually know some volatility as well when we hit the November expansion. So I'm gonna move in on this, honestly. 6-month low, it's pretty obvious that we're there once again, below 10,000 ISK, not bad at all. 9,400 ISK for the buyers. I think 300 ISK for the buyers. I think we can make a move on that. I'm buying some more Morphite just to have it. Again, not all my ISK, not as I'm going to make double my investment or anything like that, but just get a bit of ISK, put that aside in some more fight. I think it makes sense, and I'm definitely going to jump in on that right after this EVE talk. Next up, we've got some PI then, of course, the new category, which is going to be at 1930. And I took pretty much all of your suggestions, although I don't know exactly what they end up producing. But I think now we have a decently nice spread of all of the different categories of PI. So you've got like refined PI, you've got base elements, you've got all that good stuff. So here are the construction blocks. I would say trading at above 13k, it's quite okay, but they have been meandering at this trade range as well for a while. So this is basically the average that we've been seeing throughout the summer. Actually a pretty good summer for construction blocks, pretty high price range, and now we're just, well, on the average for that one. So I think that this is okay to sell if you want to hold off a little bit for a better sell opportunity close to 15k. I think it's in the cards considering the 20-day moving average, and at the very tail end here we can see that the median daily prices could be going back up a little bit. But if you have some construction blocks to sell, or if you're producing these, obviously not too bad a price at the moment. Consumer electronics, another request, unfortunately coming off of a very high point of 16.5 thousand ISK here, but falling back to 14,000 ISK, presumably on a lot of fresh supply. Yeah, just look at that in the last 24 hours, full front page, all of them competing with each other, bringing the price down from an easy 15,000 ISK to 14.5 thousand for the sellers. Buyers are drying up here, 14,000 ISK for them. So this is obviously a pretty steep crash in the price here all of a sudden, although still above basically on the average of the chart in general. 14,000 is probably not that bad of a price, but considering where we just come from, you're just a week too late. I should have checked that last week. Then we would have seen a nice high point and then a nice correction in the last two EVE talks. But now, yeah, the sell opportunity unfortunately missed last week. Next up, we've got coolants, something that I'm producing, also falling back from a very high point of 15,000 ISK. So still okay, averaging at 12,000. Obviously, some investors are willing to pick it up at this point, expecting better prices later down the road. But yet another PI, refined PI, I think just like consumer electronics, yeah, that is actually falling back from a high point at the end of the summer. Quite interesting. Maybe returning players, the first thing that they do is empty their planets that may have been full if they just kept up with that throughout the summer or something like that. And they're now flooding the market a little bit, and as a result, prices are going down. Next up, enriched uranium. Coolant, enriched uranium, mechanical parts, oxygen and robotics, all tied to post-fuels. Post-fuels are decently high at the moment. As a result, enriched uranium 17,000 is also pretty high. Interestingly enough though, also correcting a little bit at the tail end. So I'm honestly starting to see 16.9 thousand ISK for the sellers when coming in here. 17.3 is the actual price here. 16.8 thousand for the buyers. So okay. What I'm honestly starting to see in this is the first signs of activity picking back up again after the summer, because there must be fresh supply coming in to pull all of this back, all of these PI planets, which in my opinion are signs of increased activity as well. Next up here, mechanical parts, very similar situation, went up to the beginning of September to a pretty high point. Again, it's tied to fuel, so this is normal, but at the very tail end, we are seeing this correct a little bit towards its normal average price of around 9,000 ISK for mechanical parts. Obviously, mechanicals are just refined just as enriched uranium, which goes for a lot more, but I think it's just a lot easier to make mechanical parts. You just need like a barren planet or something like that. Next up, oxygen. It's only processed, so this is one step lower than all the previous ones. But again, that very same pattern showing up. Increased prices throughout the summer, peak at 550 ISK around September, and now pulling back down towards 500 ISK. So again, there must be new supply coming in to pull this price back down, and I think it's basically some returning players. The first thing that they do, grab their PI, bring that to the market, and as a result, a lot of them are correcting a little bit. Same situation for robotics. This is specialized, so you need more. I think you need like mechanical parts and something else. I think mechanical parts and consumer electronics to create robotics. So this is 100,000 ISK at the moment, but again throughout the summer, high point up to 110,000 ISK on some days. So here yet again a bit of a correction, a bit of a pull back down. Rocket fuel is another request. This is, well, quite a jittery chart, but I'm sort of seeing the same pattern here again, breaking 12,000 ISK on the higher sides. The median daily prices are all over the place though, pretty crazy. But again, high point for the summer on the 5-day moving average. And here again, at the end, September comes and we're pulling back. 20-day moving average obviously pulling back as well, despite higher volumes. Slight bit of an uptick here, probably an investment when we broke 11,500 ISK. Currently sellers 12,100, buyers 10,230 ISK for rocket fuel. Not a bad price for a refined planetary material, but once again the high point seemed to have been the summer, and it looks like returning players are adding enough material to actually pull the price back down a bit. Self-harmonizing power core. Advanced stuff is quite a bit more tricky to make, takes a lot of the base materials, and as a result this is going for 2.4 million. You could see this pattern here again going up through September or to September to 2.8 million and then going back down, but honestly well, this could be just a Citadel expansion because you may need self-harmonizing power cores for Citadels. Thus you have an increase in price to 4 million on the Citadel demand, Citadel speculation, then through the summer going back down to a low point of 2 million. Now here going back up and then back down again. So this could again be the same pattern, higher prices through the summer, and then again as activity increases a bit back down. But I can also see the industrial arrays being guilty here. So industrial arrays are coming closer, people are starting to stock up on the advanced PI materials that they need for that, increasing the price. And a lot of people, myself included, I think we're still hoping for September, October for the industrial arrays, because it was set fall, but now that we know that they're coming in November, probably around here, people said, all right, you know what, I can take my time a little bit, thus decreasing the price because demand was back down a little bit. What could be an indication that I'm right on that is if you look at the volumes here, obviously quite a bit higher, and here at the tail end going down once again. So I think it's not exactly a delay because nothing was ever announced, but I think it can be perceived as a bit of a delay. People were expecting the industrial array right after the summer, delayed to November, causing the decrease in price for this advanced PI material. So yeah, 2.4 million at the moment. Supercomputers is next, specialized, going for 100,000 ISK. Strange chart again, median daily prices at the high end all over the place here. 5-day moving average showing some crazy jittery patterns. Here actually what I'm seeing is basically a decently steady one that is currently trading at a low point. So 120,000 ISK seems to be normal, 140,000 ISK the high range for this for the supercomputers, and now actually slowly going down, 5-day moving average at 100,000 ISK. So yeah, this is just a strange chart where something is wrong with it, because the prices, sellers are at 143,000 ISK, buyers are at 127,000 ISK, nowhere close to 100,000. So this is just a chart that is showing some strange patterns. Maybe the median daily prices are correct. Let's assume that. That seems a bit better. So we went up through the summer here again, 260,000 ISK, now going back down slowly, and here again at the tail end, 140,000 ISK at the end of the summer, but now going down towards 120,000 ISK. I'm seeing this again if the median daily prices are the correct ones, as pressure showing up at the tail end due to more activity. Next up, superconductors. This again is obviously the Citadel expansion bump. So as a result, it's had to go back down a little bit, and now it's actually holding steady at 12,000 ISK, which is just basically okay. A first one that actually just manages to trade in a normal range and stay there in the last few months. Test cultures next. Very interesting chart, something completely different actually. After the Citadel expansion, basically a high point of 16,000 ISK, then going back down to a bottom of 6.5 thousand ISK, more than 50% loss of the price here, and now going back up to 10,000 ISK. This amount of volatility, you can make some trade money on test culture apparently. Currently selling for less than 10,000 ISK, bars are at around 9,000 or 8,500 even, but this is a very unusual chart. As a result, you could make some money on this stuff, in my opinion. We're on our way up, so keep an eye on this one. And finally, wetware mainframes, advanced one going for 2.5 million. Yet again, Citadel expansion bump here up to 4.5 million. Obviously, after that, you need to recover a little bit. We went down to below 2.5 million. I think here again, increased volumes, people expecting, hoping for the industrial array going back up. At the tail end here though, increased activity, more players going back, putting some pressure on the price. Maybe also the news that it's only for November that we're gonna see the industrial arrays, thus pushing the price back down below 2.5 million. So if you need some of these for an industrial array, if you need some wetware mainframes, if you need some, I think it's the supercomputers or it's the power cores. Yeah, the power cores. These are definitely okay prices to pick some of these up in preparation of the industrial arrays, in my opinion. So it looks like the advanced PI materials are actually basically at a doable price at the moment. And in general on PI, again, at the tail end here, I'm seeing decreased prices across almost all of them. And I think it is a first sign that activity is picking back up. All right, next up, Tech One ships, 31 minutes. I chose a couple of different ones from last week, so we're just going to go through these and hope that we can see something interesting. For the Blackbird here, Galari Cruiser, substantial downtrend all of a sudden from 9 million to 7.5 million pretty much, but recovering back towards 9 million. So honestly, if you look at this here, trade range 8.5 to 9.5 million, that's really not that bad, and on average just above 9 million seems to be okay. So at the moment, probably at the end of the summer, decreased activity does a bit of a lower price, but could obviously come back on volumes that do seem to be coming back a little bit. Next up, we've got the Breacher. This is a Tech One frigate, starts just below 500,000 ISK, ends just above 500,000 ISK. There's really not much to say about this chart like this. Pretty stable, which in my opinion is good for Tech One ships, because stability here means that the base economy is not either completely inflating out of control or deflating out of control. So the Breacher at this, with a chart like this, I'm pretty happy with that. Next up, we've got the Brutix. That's interesting. There's actually some volatility to be spotted early on here, from 52 million to 60 million, 8 million. That's more than 10% on an average price. So we had volatility before the expansion, possibly due to the war. Maybe some Brutix fleets have been purchased and fielded. That is a possibility. But after that, we obviously see the decrease in volatility and currently the decrease in price as well at the end of the summer. So currently Brutixes are selling for 56.5 million, bars are at 51 million. Definitely a very decent price for the Brutix, but some volatility may have been in the PvP meta a little bit before the summer. Next up here, we've got the Courser, so averaging 1.1 to 1.2 million. We're just above that at the tail end here. Some volatility, June, July. Couldn't tell you why. There doesn't really seem to be that much of a reason, except that there is no demand here at the moment, or very little demand, which means that just a bit of interference from a big player can actually cause something like this. But the pullback was back to 1.1 million, currently selling for 1.2, 1.3 million. Buyers are just above 1 million. So, all right, Courser, 1 million, 1.2 million. I think it's still okay. This one volatile spike here, I couldn't really tell you what that was all about. Next up, we've got the Ferox. Yet again, a decently stable chart, which I like. Starts at just above 50 million, ends at just above 55 million on a high point actually. So the averages here looking quite okay for 55 million for a Ferox. Almost 60 million for the sellers, 52 million for the buyers. Decently high margin on the Ferox, but this is decently stable. Pretty good for a thick one. Chart. Next up, we've got the Megatron actually going for 170 million, decently low at the moment. 175 for the sellers, 163 for the buyers. A bit of volatility here and here. This is obviously going to be the war. April must have been the war where some Megatron fleets were bought and probably fielded as well. But after that, 210 million supply took over, crashed the price to 170. We went back up here all of a sudden to 205 again, June, July. Couldn't tell you what this is, but something must have happened here as well, because it's very similar to the coercer spike. And then we went back down to 160 million, and now we're just basically recovering from the glut in supply that came from a price spike up to 205 million. Currently, decently average, I would say, for the Megatron. Next up, the Procure. Also, I'm also always going to try to have a thick one mining barge in here. A bit of volatility at the end here, currently trading for around 25 million. But also going back down a little bit. So averaging 25 million should be possible. 25.2 for the sellers, 23.6 for the buyers. So 25 yet again, very doable. I think this looks a bit more volatile than it actually is. 22 to 27 million is not that bad. Well, it's 5 million on 20 million. Yeah, actually, yeah, there is some volatility here, to be honest. So a bit more than I expected or would like to see when it comes to a thick one ship. But here at the end, though, you can see that the volatility does seem to be decreasing towards the 24-25 million range on average. Next up, the Punisher, actually at the low point here at the moment, starts at 500,000 ISK, ends at 440,000 ISK. But in general, this could be the war. This could be an overreaction from supply after the war, pushing it down to 400 million. As a result, of course, no one is going to bring in Punishers at these prices. We should back up again, and now we're actually just basically stabilizing, but actually going for a low point at the moment. There is no supply with some demand. I think we're set to go back up. But yeah, basically the low volumes of the Punisher is what's causing these volatile spurts, I think, here. Next up, we've got the Rock. What can we see here? Not a lot. I'm not seeing like a clear war spike here. Bit of a Citadel expansion bump up to 240 million. But yet again, what we're seeing here very often is that when one of these Tech 1 ships does spike up to well above its average range, the industrial response is so great that we crash back down to way below the average range, again below 200 million, slowly going back up to 215, then again crashing down to 195. Obviously at some point here, people are just not going to bring rocks to the market again, and then going back up again here towards 205 million. So starting just below 210, ending just above 205 on average. It didn't move over 6 months, but we do have two pretty major waves that came in with low points at 190, below 200 million. Okay, for the Rock, honestly, 200 million, yeah, pretty much for a cool looking ship like that. I think that's definitely quite okay. And next up, we've got the Thorax, Galente Cruiser. Average 11.2, 11.4 million. You can see that we managed to stay there pretty well. Bit of a spike here, maybe due to the war. After that, summer, decrease in activity, decrease in price to 10.4 million. Some volatility at the end here, up to 12 million. But again, this is always very short-lived. We're right back down to 10.8 million, which is a bit below the average, which I would say is normal for the end of the summer. And then finally, we've got the Thrasher Minmatar Destroyer. This is definitely a pretty good chart for stability. Starts at 1.1 million, ends at 1.1 million. There is just one spike, which yet again spikes up to 2 million, but gets closed very quickly. Big volumes here is, well, it's a bit too late for this price spike. But I think that people then just started bringing in Thrashers, crashing the price back down, to its normal average, 1.2 million for a Thrasher. So there you go, take one. Couple of, yeah, probably war-related spikes to be spotted here and there. Some probably speculative spikes here and there, but in general, doing quite well with basically staying stable in general, and of course a bit of low ranges at the moment due to the low summer activity. Next up, Take 2 ships, 39.15. Let's take a quick look at these, but again, unfortunately for Take 2 ships, the stability that the new taxes have brought is just not good for what I would like to see in the Take 2 market, which is a lot of volatility and a lot of trade potential. The Basilisk went down to 190 million, back up to 220, but is already on its way back down at the tail end here. So this is just, unfortunately, it takes 3-4 weeks for this movement here to happen, so you can't really trade very actively in this, and we're already on our way back down. Next up, we've got the Broadsword. All right, showing a bit of volatility. That's pretty nice, actually. 270 down to 240. Almost trade worthy, I would say, and then shooting back up here to 270. Very interesting. It's basically because there are no broadswords on the market at the moment. So unfortunately, this a slight bit of volatility, I think we can ascribe that to the lack of volumes on the market, which may also be due to the lack of interest in people actually speculating on Take 2 ships anymore. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. If this can keep up, if we can see more broadswords, but also increased volatility, it could be interesting, but I'm not going to see this as a sign of Take 2 volatility just yet. Cerberus here again, slowly going back down to below 210 million. Would you buy some of these? Well, they're willing to buy below 200 million. So that is obviously not that bad for a buy opportunity, considering especially that there are 2 events coming. This could be okay to speculate on, actually. Now that I think about it, if you can pick up a couple of Cerberuses close to or below 200 million ISK, and the Crimson Harvest, for instance, Cerberus is a very good ship for that, brings back some extra interest into the Cerberus, then you could actually make some money on that. So if there's one thing here now that I think you could gamble on, don't think I'm going to do it personally, it is increased demand for Cerberus due to the events that are coming, and at the moment we seem to be okay for trying to pick a couple up. Next up, we've got Damnation. Command ship went up to 400 million, now on its way back down to 320 million. So this could have been good to speculate on. Unfortunately, this is on extremely low volumes once again, and from the bottom of 300 million to the peak of 400 million takes more than 2 months. This is again not the sharp volatility that I personally like to see and that we used to see in the Take 2 market. Next up here, we've got the Hound, again a bit too stable in my book here at the tail end. It is going up from probably 18.5 towards 20 million, but that's not something that you can actually risk trades on, in my opinion. Next up here, we've got the Kronos, also on its way back down from a high of 1.4 billion, heading back to a normal trade range of 1.15 billion. So quite interesting to see this increase in price, but yet again, bottom of 1.1 billion, top of 1.4 billion, space in between this around 2 months, so that is just not fast enough in my opinion. The Raptor here showing the stability, unfortunately, in the Take 2 market. Bit of a bump up, but this is from 24 to 26 million. That's less than 10% with the new taxes. There's just no money to be made here. Next up, we've got the Saber. That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. Starts at 50 million, ends at 51 million. This is just a median daily price that's screwing with us, probably from a Citadel or something like that. But considering the amounts that we're seeing here, nope, this is not an actual spike. Unfortunately, it would have been great, but I don't think so. Next up, the Stork, the only one, in my opinion, that shows the pattern we like to see. Start at 60 million. 1 week later, 80 million, a week after that, back at 60 million. This is where you can try to purchase them for 55 million on some of these opportunities, then wait for a spike, which happened twice here, 55 to 70 million, and then from 60 million to 80 million. This is the pattern we would like to see more of. So the Stork, unfortunately, again very low in volumes, but the one recent spike that I do like. And then finally we've got the Widow, again going up from 1 billion to 1.15 billion, on its way back down again at the end of the summer. Quite interesting, bit of a PI pattern that we're seeing here almost. But honestly, do you want to do active trading on a chart like this? Personally, I don't think so. Next up, the Tech 3 market. This is bound to be a bit more interesting, 44.15, because we already saw that the Tengu is the big winner this week. You can see it right now on the chart, up to 180 million, almost 12% increase in price in 1 week. That is volatility we can do something with. So let's get started on these. First with the destroyers. Unfortunately for the Confessor, plateauing at 50 million ISK, new supply. Yeah, half a front page, so it's obviously keeping up at the moment here on the Confessor market. Basically 50 million new trade range after a bottom at 40 million. Next up here we get the Hegeti, 48 million. Again, some more stability coming in. Fresh supply, well, there's not that much supply. That's interesting, but it is coming in here. 23,415, 68 a couple of days ago. So I think that the Hegeti could trade in this range for now. Next up here, the Jackdaw. So these are the destroyers, stable at 46 million. Fresh supply, yeah, again 44.16 here. So Jackdaw also found its price range. And then finally we've got the Zwebel, which went up to 60 million, but now on its way back down to 50 million. Keep the other ones in mind here. And fresh supply is obviously going to be pretty damn high. Yeah, exactly, because of that price spike. So unfortunately for the tactical destroyers, it does look like they're basically finding a new trade range. And except for this Zwebel trade opportunity, which I completely missed, I think we're basically going to stabilize at around this 50 million, 48 million trade range for most of these. Unless something really drastic happens in another market, then I think that supply could actually stabilize across all 4 of them. So it's looking like the only one that's at danger now is the Hegeti. So if something could happen to the Hegeti to shoot up in price, if that happens, volatility may yet persist. Unfortunately, all of them meeting and plateauing at around 48 to 50 million is not a good sign for continued volatility. But when it comes to the cruisers, we should see something much better. Yes, Legion, look at that, shooting up to 185 million. There is no supply, so this needs to be filled with fresh supply, and it will be filled with fresh supply. 190 million for a tactical strategic cruiser. It's been quite a while since we've seen that, so expect a huge flood of Legions next week. So I don't think they'll be able to bring a lot of Hegetis to the market, which may be a price spike for the Hegeti next week. Very interesting. I think that this one is really tied together in a spider web of action and reaction, and the Legion spike here together with, there must be a similar Tengu spike here as well, to up to 180 million. Big volume. Legion, not so much of a big volume. That's quite interesting. So basically was bought out on not that much effort. And then here the Loki next, price spike up to 170 million. Availability, well, 40 of them coming in here at 171 should stop this. The Legion is going to be flooded. Loki, we will still see some Lokis coming in. And then we've got the Proteus also spiking up to 190 million. And supply is probably starting already here. 2, 1, 4, 5. You can see here as well, 13, 14, 17. Very interesting. And then the Tengu up as well. So the strategic cruisers are up substantially, all of them, from their bottoms. This would have been a good trade here, buying through the summer at 140, 145. Proteus here as well. Look at that, 135. Legion 135, 145 without too much effort. Loki less than 135 million, and now going for 180, 190 million. That's obviously a very nice trade. One that I need to keep in mind: strategic cruiser summer slump was quite severe. awesome buy opportunity. I made a couple trades in the destroyers on their bottoms, but this pattern is one that we need to keep in mind for next year for sure. At the moment, of course, you're a bit too late to jump in on these opportunities. What you can try to find is expect where supply is going to have to flood because of the higher prices, and thus which ones may jump up. If I had to gamble, I would say the Hecate, because there just aren't enough to sustain the Hecate market for all that long. 224 here, but that's also at 49 million, unfortunately. But if there's one of them that doesn't have enough fresh supply, it's the Hecate market. So we'll see if we see a spike in the Hecate next week. That could be interesting. Am I going to gamble on that? No, I think more fight investment is going to take precedence here. But if I would have to gamble in Tech Tree, I would gamble on the Hecate at the moment because of all of this. Legion, Proteus, Loki and Tengu up in price quite substantially, 10% and more without too much effort here. That is going to need a lot of supply, and it's going to mean a lot of supply, a lot of people that will want to take advantage of these high prices. And then finally, for the extra material, 50 minutes pretty much, I'm going to again take a look at the Sisters of Eve ships. It's actually something that before the summer they were at an extremely low price, and I want to check to see how these have evolved. So faction frigates, pirate I think they're called, and Astero, let's take a look. This was what I had spotted here, July, very low price, bottom price of 52 million. We are pulling back a little bit, very interesting, currently selling at 56 million, bar still at 51 million. I think increased activity, increased interest in the game, and the November release could actually push these ships up quite substantially, because these are go-to ships for new players. Although alpha clones won't be able to use them, I think the fact that these are very doable skill-wise and covered ups is very attractive to new players. So I think that, again here, similar to the Tech Tree market, we had a clear bottom in July here, and we're working our way up a little bit. Let's take a look at the cruiser next. So again, for that it's faction, pirates and Stradios. Similar chart here, bottom of 180, currently going up towards 200 million, 204 for the sellers, 185 for the buyers. So also coming out of its summer slump. And then finally, of course, we also have a battleship, which is a bit of a different story because it's not covered ops. It's more of a PvP ship that is not like an entire fleet doctrine, but part of other fleet doctrines. So we have faction, pirates, and it's the Nestor. That one actually staying pretty damn stable despite a huge volume spike here all of a sudden, staying stable at 660 million. I think it's just because the Nestor is part of active fleet doctrines in nullsec that we're not seeing the same thing. But for the cruiser, for the Astero and the Stradios, up in price a little bit, and I think that could have some momentum as activity increases and new players come to EVE Online. Very interesting. If you want in on it, you could still risk it, but unfortunately your summer buy opportunity is over, which I did spot. I just didn't really keep all that close of an eye on the Sisters of Eve ships, which is why I wanted to check these as the extra material this week. And that's going to be it for this EVE Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.